Welcome to the channel. Thanks for watching. Hey, if you watched my breakdown, my preview of the Palmetto Bowl on the front end with Jason Priester, first of all, thank you. This is one of my most watched videos of the year. But if you watched it, you knew we weren't feeling very confident. We thought South Carolina would run the ball really well against Clemson's defense. We thought, conversely, Clemson wouldn't be able to run the ball very well against South Carolina. And we were right on those counts. South Carolina ran all over Clemson in particular. LaNorris Sellers totaled 166 rushing yards. Clemson had no answer for him. A lot of those were, passing plays that, frankly, he probably should have been sacked on. Clemson had 3 sacks, probably could have had close to like 9. But they would hit him, they would hurry him, they would get an arm on him, but they wouldn't bring him down. And those plays turned into the best plays of the game for South Carolina, including the game-winning 20-yard touchdown with 1 minute and 8 seconds to go. But Clemson's failure to bring him down and handle a mobile quarterback, a big mobile quarterback, even using a spy sometimes still didn't work. That was the difference in the game. Clemson, maybe they should have dropped into some zone coverage and just sat back and tested to see if he could actually beat him with his arm. But at the same time, then they're going to give the ball to Rocket Sanders. And their strategy worked fairly well in slowing Sanders down. Sanders had 60 yards on 18 carries, so only 3.3 yards per carry. Clemson really did everything defensively they were supposed to do, except for slow down LaNorris Sellers on the ground, both in designed and broken plays. And that's the difference in the game. I thought Cade Klubnik was good, but LaNorris Sellers was really great. So Clemson loses at home to South Carolina. That's the second time in a row they've lost a home game against South Carolina. They've now lost 2 home games in the same season. 9-3 is a decent number, but I'll show you some detail on it that maybe makes it a little bit less impressive. What the offense only had 14 points despite racking up a ton of yards. I'm just going to pull up the stat here. So total yards, Clemson had 419 total yards, which is actually pretty good. South Carolina had 432. It's crazy. South Carolina won what looks like a defensive affair, 17-14. Really, the teams moved the ball pretty easily. They didn't turn them into points. Clemson went for it on 4th down, 4th and 1. I thought it was the correct call. They brought in Peter Woods, and he made his block, but someone else burst through and tackled Phil Maffa. Phil Maffa, maybe he's hurt. He hasn't been very effective lately. He only had 66 yards on 20 carries, just 3.3 yards per carry. I thought Clemson in the second half did a good job, not totally giving up, but somewhat moving away from more conventional running back handoffs. Ran Klubnik a bit more. Both of the Clemson's touchdowns were on Klubnik runs. They probably needed to lean into that more. But what I think was one of the worst things they did, and one of the biggest differences in the game, Clemson got the ball back. There's about 6 minutes to go. You got a chance to go down, get some points, and a field goal would make it they were up 4 at the time. So if you kick a field goal, you're pretty much guarantee overtime. If you get a touchdown, you win the game. And instead they get really conservative as if they're going to burn, that much clock. They haven't run the ball all day. They do a jet sweep, pick up 2-3 yards, and then they do like a handoff up the middle and get nothing. And then they're in 3rd and long, they don't convert. Just hate the play calling there. You've been passing the ball, picking them apart. Again, on the very last drive of the game, they proved that they could pick them apart for a while. That's what you got to do there. They got really conservative, and that they punted it, and South Carolina goes down and wins it. I thought South Carolina was the aggressor. It felt in the stadium, even when it was tied, Clemson only trailed for 68 seconds of the game. It felt like South Carolina fans, South Carolina players, coaches wanted to be there. They felt like it was their moment. The vibes were the crowd was loud and good, but it always felt a little eerie, and that's certainly not what you want. There was definitely at least one very, very questionable review. I guess Klubnik tripped and tossed it to Maffa, which surprised Maffa, and then he went down and then lost the ball. He was clearly down, but I guess they said he'd never had possession. So when he was down, he never had gained possession. I don't like the call, but what really bothers me is they stopped it for review so late. Clemson had already fully completed the next play, which was a very long pass play. So even if they had went back and said, no, he was down, they were still going to take away a very successful play for Clemson. I think that was ridiculous, poorly done. I thought the referees lost control of the game, or not so much lost control of the game, but just messed up the game flow. Several of these reviews are just really painful to sit through. Not because they're, high tension, just it just ruins the in-game experience. It was awful. So that was disappointing. But Clemson, they lost to the line of scrimmage. I thought they didn't seem like they had a big talent advantage. South Carolina deserved it, so I don't want to take away from them. So check this out. This is kind of what concerns me more longer term. So Clemson 9-3. On the surface, Dab was going to tell you, hey, 9 wins. He's going to do his White House press conference kind of thing where he tries to tell you that this is actually good. But when you look at the wins, they beat a 7-win Pittsburgh. They beat 6-win NC State, 6-win Virginia Tech. And everyone else they beat is a losing team. App State, bad. Stanford, awful. Florida State, awful. Wake Forest, awful. Virginia, not very good. The Citadel, FCS. So their wins are totally empty calories. Meanwhile, you look at their losses. They played 3 quality opponents. They played Georgia, who got 10 wins. They're obviously very good. They faced Louisville, a solid 8-win team who had a tough schedule. They're certainly a good team. It's not an embarrassing loss by any means. And they played a very good South Carolina team, the best South Carolina team probably since Spurrier was there. But they lost all of them. They were 0-3 against quality opponents. And, they faced a schedule in the ACC where they didn't have to. I mean, you can look here. They only faced 6 bowl teams. Yeah. So they faced Virginia Tech, NC State, Pittsburgh, and then the 3 they lost to. So they went 3-3 against bowl teams, 3-3 against teams that are 500 or better. So this was, I think, in most regards, a poor season, despite them going 7-1 in the ACC, which is just crazy. But as it turns out, they got the gift of a soft ACC schedule. A lucky draw. Didn't seem soft at the start. You're facing NC State. You're facing Florida State on the road. It didn't seem like that was going to be easy. Virginia Tech on the road, but it worked out that way. And what do you know? Miami loses 2 out of 3 to end the year, blows their chance to win the conference. Maybe they'll still sneak into the playoff, but Clemson now faces SMU, so they've got one more chance to win a real game against a real opponent. SMU's 11-1. I think they're really, really good. I think it's a little embarrassing for the ACC that they were able to come in and run roughshod over the conference, but they did it. I think Rhett Lashley is an awesome coach and deserves tons of credit. SMU opened as a 1.5-point favorite in Charlotte against Clemson. I'll do a full preview of that game, but that seems conservative. I think SMU is really good. I believe in SMU. But I think now to kind of zoom out, so Clemson could win that game. They could be ACC champions and then go to the playoff. And then all of a sudden you're looking, hey, we went 10-3 and we made the playoff. As long as they don't get embarrassed there, nothing to be ashamed of, right? That is a chance to turn the narrative back, right? From, hey, you beat up on ACC cupcakes. You're an ACC cupcake eater. That's the status now. You beat SMU and you at least look respectable against another very good team in the playoff. That narrative shifts. And that helps for sure. But I think what else has to happen for Clemson? You've got to really shift your philosophy. Dabo has been extremely negative about the transfer portal. And he's complained about how NIL is pay for play, and it's wrong, and I hate that it's pay for play. And he's been right about what it would become. I thought it was, obvious that he would be right about that, and he was. But it's not really feasible to just not take transfers and still compete for a national championship. Maybe if you recruit like Georgia, it's possible, but Georgia doesn't even try to do it. And they have 2 losses, right? So Clemson does not recruit well enough. They don't develop well enough to even have a thought that they can win a national championship without transfers. I think that whole experiment has run its course. If Clemson doesn't go into the portal aggressively this offseason, then I think you see no major progress next season. I think it's an absolute must at this point. I know that readers on TigerNet and Shaking the Southland and listeners here sometimes get really upset with me when I go on about the transfer portal, so I won't linger on this. But I think it's now essential. I think Clemson, it doesn't have to be 10 guys. You probably shouldn't go the Florida State route where you're building your entire team through it. But how would this team have been different if they had a defensive end, right? Maybe 1 or 2 guys, defensive end and offensive lineman, right? Maybe that changes things. So I think that is an absolute must. And we'll see. We're going to very quickly learn if Clemson is going to make a philosophical shift. One thing that gives me optimism that points to that is in the game, Graham Neff, athletic director Graham Neff, came on the video board on the Jumbotron and spoke about how the 110 Society, Clemson's NIL collective, donations to that will now count for IPDA priority points. So they're now starting to shift, and that's not all just philosophy. That's also NCAA rules that are allowing it, but they're trying to move some money, some donations, instead of going to facilities and scholarships, going to NIL. And Clemson fans and donors absolutely have to get behind that if Clemson has any hope of sort of reversing this decline. And it's going to have to be, as much as so many people hate, not just retention, but also talent acquisition through the portal, and even just holding together your high school class, your high school recruiting class. Clemson's down to 14 commits right now because they've lost 6 of them. In a lot of cases because, Georgia Tech or Duke came in and said, hey, we'll offer you a lot more money in an NIL deal. And you might like Clemson more, you might be excited about it, but these are good schools too. And if they're offering you $100,000 more, I don't blame the kid for going to an also very good school with a really valuable degree and getting a ton of money up front. They could set them up for life. And so Clemson has to compete in that. And what'll help, and what Dabo Swinney's been excited about, is revenue sharing. Now, revenue sharing is going to start. It's going to be kind of like the NFL, where all the athletic departments get a chunk of their own money that they can dedicate to paying the players. They don't have to dedicate the full amount, which is about $21 million, but they can, and Clemson will. And then the athletic director will dedicate portions of it to each team. Dabo Swinney is excited because the football team will get by far the largest share, towards the top as a percentage with any other school. Hopefully that doesn't hurt men's basketball. But I think he's more than capable of allocating that appropriately. They'll hire someone very capable to sort of manage their salary cap. But that doesn't make NIL go away. And I think Coach Swinney is really hopeful that the promised third-party enforcement of NIL deals for inducement will be legitimate. But we'll see. I still think even with that helping, Clemson's going to have to get a lot more serious about NIL, giving it to guys to get them to come. It's very unfortunate that's what college football has become. And we can all lament about that, but I'd rather lament about that while Clemson is beating South Carolina, is winning double-digit regular season games, is a legitimate national championship contender, and that's frankly what it's going to take. So this is going to be a fascinating offseason. Will they lean on NIL to go get 1 or 2 or 3 major impact guys from the portal, sort of last second to build up this recruiting class that is not bad, but it's 27th ranked according to the 24/7 composite, and it's just because there's not enough guys. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do. I think this is an absolutely critical offseason. Thank goodness for some of the changes, both philosophically that seem like maybe Dabo's willing to embrace now. Thank goodness for revenue sharing, and thank goodness for Syracuse for beating Miami, 21-point comeback. Huge kudos to them. I loved Fran Brown's kind of teasing in a nice way Swinney in his post-game presser saying, you can thank me later, Coach Swinney. I thought that was awesome. So Clemson, go out, beat a good team for the first time all year, finish with 10 wins, go to the playoff. What happens in the playoffs happens, but then you leave with some real momentum into really embracing some of these philosophical changes, and we can reverse this trend here. Conversely, lose to SMU, beat around the bush, don't embrace the portal, and I think we see a continued decline. They're going to have a much tougher schedule next year. Going to Syracuse, hosting SMU, getting LSU at home, going to South Carolina, who with LaNorris Sellers, the way he's looking, is going to be pretty tough. I think this is a huge offseason. I think this ACC championship game, even though sometimes it feels almost like I know a lot of fans are like not excited that Syracuse won, and I get that because it feels like we don't deserve it. This is still a big opportunity to change the narrative, sort of a mulligan. I'll have a full preview of that game upcoming. But until then, thanks for watching, and as always, go Tigers.